Let's Kimmy here. Who else would it be? This is May 30th. Sorry, I had to take off my glasses here for a second. Um, and we're just going to take a look here for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. I guess that's going to be a Bitcoin brief. That wasn't really my intention, was to record one, but I do think we have some interesting things in the markets, and so I wanted to update things. I've also been out for a couple days, so I do apologize. If you've been trying to contact me, things like that, I do. It's another family thing with my son. Might have to have an operation soon. But with all of that, I've been kind of delayed. But I do want to update because I think there are some critical regions I want to look at, and then also what we can do to recover this before the end of the weekly close, because we still have some time to recover this. I don't think that we will, but I do want to cover it just in case. So. We'll spend probably half this video just on Bitcoin, and then the other half on Ethereum and Solana. And Solana in particular is kind of weak here, so I also saw that hype is up 5%. Let me refresh this because that doesn't sound. Yeah, I guess it is right. I guess it just went up all of a sudden. So we will take a look at this. And so with we'll start with Bitcoin. Sorry, kind of lost my train of thought for a second. So, starting with Bitcoin here, I do want to look at the daily here. This is the bullish trend that we were looking at, the bullish channel. This is also something that we looked at on the weekly, on the Binance chart. There's no particular reason for its Binance, but so on the weekly here, we actually have already broken through the middle of this channel. Okay, and that's already bad news because if it breaks through this channel, there's a good chance it's going to hit the trend line. Usually, that's what channels tend to do, or pitchforks, or whatever you want to call this. Because once it bounces off one side, it usually bounces to the other. Now, on the weekly, I'm going to bounce back and forth between weekly and daily, and then I'll go back to the weekly again to give some alternatives. But the bad news on the weekly is that we've already got 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 2 touches on each side. Usually the third touch is the one that matters the most, and usually the one that breaks through. So we are in danger of not only losing the mid, but we're also in danger of hitting back here on the structure and then losing that as well. And so we do have this high bullish cross, which is crazy because this is exactly what you want for a bullish rally. But now we have a wide bearish consolidation forming with about 48% difference between these two. So that's pretty moderate. It's a little bit on below average, but enough to make a difference to bring this price action down a little bit. And so with that, we also have, where's it at here? Just do this ray here. We're hitting basically the retest of the weekly here, and so that's also a concern too, because if we lose that, we definitely are in danger of losing everything. And this is going to be very unfortunate because we're basically right here at the top, and we need to hold this. Otherwise, everything that we've done is all for none. Now, I've expressed previous videos. If you've watched probably 2 of my videos in the last 3 weeks, you know that I've been barking about a 2-week bearish divergence, which we did get. We barely got it. It was on the 13th candle, and so you had the lower high here, and they had a higher high here. So that is a concern. And so we still have about 9, almost 10 days left for this, but this could deviate as well. And so we could deviate on the 1 day, 1 week, and 2 week chart, and that's very bad. That's extremely, extremely bad. That might be I'd say at least the top for at least 2 to 3 months. And so I apologize if you hear crying. My wife's attending to my daughter. So with this, you could see basically no bullish price action till probably the middle of the third quarter, if not the entirety of the third quarter. And that's going to be pretty disappointing. I don't think a lot of you are ready for that. I don't think. Based off what I've seen just on CT as a whole, obviously CT is not a good metric of anything, but people don't have the patience for this, and this is also why I was talking about, let's go back to the daily here to cover this. I was looking for buys in here. I tried to buy a little bit here, but I ended up getting my buys here, one at 83 or 84,000. I can't remember the other one, to be honest with you. It had an 8 in front of it. I do know that. But then I got out here. I got a little bit out as we started to get up here. And so now we've came back below, back where we were in the middle, early to mid-May. And now we're in danger of that. So that takes us to the daily. Now, the daily I talked about a channel as well. We had this push above here on the zone. It had a fierce drop back down. When we get a drop back down pretty with a lot of strength like this, a big candle, it typically is a bad sign. Now, this wasn't a full deviation, and it actually rallied up here. But once we got the retest at the 109,472, that was a sign that we would go down. And now we fully got it. The last closing candle, we closed at roughly like 105.6, and that made this as a full deviation. And that's a very bad sign. That's a sign that's my most bearish sign that I look for. Now the good news is we are above the 50 RSI. We can recover this. And nothing's set in stone. Everything can be modified, and so it's no guarantee that we're going to like 80,000 or 50,000 or whatever. We're close to breaking this as a deviation on the third day as well, and so that's another consideration. So things are deviating on the 1 day, 3 day, 1 week, 2 week. Okay, and that's usually when you get confluence like that, it's a sign of a market-wide issue. And I did mention, so if you're in my Patreon group or my Abram Pro group, so the Patreon and Discord are the same thing. I don't know if people are aware of that, but if you're not, if you're not joined, you can go ahead and join. I do give 50% off for the first month. But one thing that we did talk about was that we took profits on all our positions. We were stacked in our positions. We made over 400% on that, and we got out. We got out about 2 weeks ago, and so since then we've had very minor bullish reactions since then. And we're just chilling. I think we only have maybe 2 active trades in the trading portfolio. And they're actually doing good. One of them is actually hype. And so I won't tell you what the other one is, but one of the reasons we decreased our exposure is because the market is asking for a decrease of exposure. And kind of going into my group just a little bit, like there's a big misconception. I work in connection with a lot of influencers. I work behind the scenes as a kind of a ghost writer, ghost integrator, things like that, ghost algorithm person. Like, I guarantee you guys follow people that I work for, and then I actually help incorporate their strategies for them. So, but one thing that I've seen across the board is people complaining that a lot of influencers are not giving trades. And then I've had complaints where people are trading too much. And the thing is, that's going to flow. It should flow with the markets. It should. It absolutely should. Because there are times when you should trade more than you should normally trade. Like the 2008 financial crisis, for example, or the COVID drop, or I mentioned this. I mentioned black swans in particular because I keep saying black swans are bullish events. That's why I say that. Because you get in at the lows. When momentum is strong, when the strength is high, that's when you trade more. When things look weak, if things are capitulating, things like that, you typically trade less. I typically do not trade both sides of the fence. I don't trade longs and shorts typically. I just kind of go with that. So anyway, with that being said, I got a time restraint, so I got to kind of focus more on the charts here. We have the deviation with the 3-day. We've got 6 hours left. None of this is good news. So what does that mean? Okay, so the next target here, at least on the daily, is going to be this zone. Okay, in the middle of that's going to be about 103.9, a little bit rounded up for you. That's basically where we're at now, or where we went to. Okay, so if we can hold that for the daily, then we have a chance to kind of reclaim this over the weekend, and so that is a possibility. That brings us to the weekly standpoint. I'll cover a little bit on the daily here, go to the weekly to see what we could do to recover this. The good news is you're looking at the most with the bullish line at 43% roughly. You're only looking at a low, like a mid 40s bearish cross, and so that would be a pretty weak cross. So in English, that basically means the bulls have exhausted here, but the bears are not exactly at full strength either, and so that's something that we can play out. I don't think the bears are really strong here. Now it could be if the bulls let up, but there's not a lot of buying pressure here. There's really not, and so you have that to consider. You also have the 50 RSI on here is usually a really good strong point. We actually reclaimed that This first time we're going there since April 11th. Okay, we had a pretty big pump since then. I tend to look at RSI 50 quite a bit, and that's why I have it highlighted. We tend to have big swings when we cross that. Now, here's an example here where we did cross this back in October 10th, and then or 24. We bounced roughly around that in November, and then we rallied from there. So that's perfectly possible as well. And if we want to look at this here, this was pretty much your zone, and that's almost what we got here. We have a little touch up and then consolidation. This would have to consolidate double bottom probably to get the same effect, and it doesn't have to be the same, but we rallied right after that. So that is a possibility as well. So just keep that in mind. We also have something here where it had the run up, drop down into the band. That's kind of what we got here. The problem with the daily is that we're below my Aron band, and once we go below, it tends to stay below, right? And so you had a little bit of fake out here, rejection, fake out, rejection, and then it rallied, and then it continued on the trend. So now we finally broke that trend. Now, what could we do instead? The biggest thing I would look for is a recovery on the weekly. I'm not interested in anything else, not interested in daily or lower, not interested in longs or shorts. I'm interested in how this weekly can recover. And the first thing it needs to do is stay above this 104 or 104, 128. And we're already below it currently. Another thing that we can do is try to hold the midline of this, which would be a little bit higher, about 107, just under 107,000, and that's going to be a pretty high ask to do. And so that's, if we can recover this fully on the weekly, that would be good. Excuse me, sorry. Actually, we're a little bit, I had to adjust this, 104, 376. If we can hold that for the weekly, that might count for something. It might count for something because the weekly is still technically intact here. That's the only thing we got going for it. But everything else is looking deviated. This can easily deviate because we got, almost 2.5 days left. So that's just something to look for. I am not very optimistic here based off of what I've learned in the past and experience. But we still have a chance. If we can hold this here for the daily and daily closings up here, that's pretty good. Now you can also, one last thing for this, if this does close here and then it closes bullish on the next candle, which would be Saturday's candle, you could technically try to long this. Problem is you're going to go into price discovery, and so this is where I personally don't like deviations, longing deviations into price discovery, because that is a low probability. I always think in terms of probability. What's the highest thing I could do? What's the lowest thing to do? Avoid the low things, do the high things. This is a plausible thing that we could do. Just remember there's a low probability of this. But I still would do it anyway. I would still personally do it because that needs to happen in order to get price discovery. So that makes sense. Anyway, that is Bitcoin. Let's go to Ethereum here. This is pretty disappointing. We had a pretty good pump here. It kind of completely faked out. Now we're on the downside. We'll see how that goes. Nothing really else much to report. This has been, I've kind of flip-flopped over this the past couple days. My original thought was that, and it always goes back to my original thought, honestly. But we had a bullish breaker here, and that makes me think that we're going to go back to this line at 21.11, low 21s. That's going to be a shocker, a sticker shock for some people. But I think that we could get that. I thought that we might rally first before then, but it looks like we had that fake out. It didn't work. These long signals are not valid because they have not gone above the zone. They need to close above. I'm a fan of market closes for entries, and that's exactly why I do that, because you do get fake out. You get fake outs all the time, and you actually get, this is my third cycle. You get fake outs more often than you used to. At least, maybe I'm not accurate on that though. I'm not. It's not like I've kept track of that over the years, but I feel like, there's been more wicks, or maybe I'm just keeping more track of it now than I used to. So, but that's pretty much Ethereum. Not really much to be said on this. The weekly here, we have a very strong level that we're wicking from for 3 weeks now. That could be a sign that we reject, go back to 21. So we'll see where it goes. Like I said, I've been neutral to bearish. We'll finally get that bearish drop here, and we'll see how that goes. Let's go to Solana, down about 4.5, roughly, almost 5. And nothing really else here. We had the push up here, deviation. Probably going to get to the mid of this, about 147. And we'll see where that goes after that. We have a weird consolidation marker here, had a high bearish cross, so I think 147 is almost inevitable. We have a couple stack bids here, but we could go as low as 132 on this. So just keep that in mind. This will be very disappointing if we lose the weekly on this. And I can see, again, 147 at the mid. That matches close to the band, closest to the bullish breaker here. So a lot of things could be seen. And we also have a bullish wedge. So I do think we could either hit 147 or 126 and then rally from there. I don't think that we'll go lower. I don't think that we'll go to 2 digits again. And then RSI is trying to flirt with the 50. So we'll see how that goes. I think I'm kind of neutral with Solana. I think it'll go down first. I think it'll bounce back the highest of the 3. But we'll see how that goes. So anyway, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think. And yeah, if you haven't joined my Patreon Discord, go ahead and check that out. Arun Pro Trading. I'll leave a link in the description, or it's in my profile. I'll see you next time.